Hey everyone, Ryan here and welcome to the Battle Blog. So this year in 2023 will mark the 15-year anniversary of when I first started working in the film industry back from 2008 to 2010, and so much has changed since then. Now as a disclaimer, I'm not going to mention certain companies and people, mostly out of respect for their privacy, and I don't want any past people I've worked with to say, "How dare you say that about me?" And while I'm sure whatever NDAs I signed have expired over the past 15 years, I'm still gonna honor them in a way, and only people close to me really know who these people and companies are, and I'm not going to be like all the news outlets spilling the beans and talking crap about the film industry and my past employers, and I know a lot of my old clients are fans of the channel, so shout out to you guys. However, there is one certain opportunity that I will mention because it's way too funny to not talk about, and I'm sure you're all gonna get a big laugh out of it, and I really have nothing to lose by talking about this, well, except my dignity, so ha. So to get started, I'm gonna go over how I got involved with video production. So back in 1999, I started making anime music videos, aka AMVs, and I started submitting to contests at anime conventions in 2001, and I've won a ton of awards over the years. And people used to tell me that I should be a big-time Hollywood editor and director after seeing me win anime music video contests, but I was more like, I don't want to do that boring Hollywood crap. I want to edit Dragon Ball Z to Linkin Park, man. So in 2006, I was majoring in computer science so I can make games for a living, but I quit as I explained in my Why I Left Game Dev for 15 Years video, so I was at a crossroads on what I should do with my life now since I left game dev for a little while, and a friend of mine in the anime music video community got a job editing videos because of his anime music videos, so I thought, maybe those people are right. I should be a Hollywood editor and director so I can make a living making movies. So I changed my major to liberal arts, which is a major a lot of people look down on, but hey, it's gotten me jobs in various industries over the years, and I decided not to major in film because at the time my college wasn't offering a film major, and according to my research it still doesn't to this day. And I decided if the whole film thing didn't work out, I'd have a liberal arts degree to fall back on and get a normal office job, since I already knew coming in that it's really hard to get into the film industry and even keep employment there, which I will definitely go into detail later in this video. So my college job center was posting internships at all the major film studios, so in the summer of 2006, I applied for all of them and got nothing. In 2007, I did the same thing and got nothing. Man, I started realizing how much of a luxury it is to get rejection letters. Yeah, because I would wait for so long with hopes I'd get a call back, but after a month of waiting, I would assume nothing would be happening, so I didn't want to get my hopes up. So 2008 was going to be the year I was going to graduate college with my Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts, so this was literally my last chance to get an internship, so I applied again, and after 2 weeks, I got a call from one of them. Yes! So during my interview at the studio, I told them I was going to be graduating so I could easily dedicate all my time to the internship without taking summer classes, but they told me they can only pay me in college credit, gave me one free meal from their food places once a week, and compensate my gas, which really helped, and if I decided to go back to school with another major, I can use the credits they gave me for elective credit. I haven't been back to school since 2008, and I never used those credits, and I told them I was good with computers and I was also willing to work on set too if I could. So I saved up 6 months of living expenses, and my mom was concerned, and rightfully so, that I wasn't trying to get a more stable job since we were at the beginning of the previous recession. So my dad passed away earlier in the year, and my mom said I could move back in for free if I needed to, but I told my mom I still wanted to be independent and wanted to pursue my dream of being a film director in hopes that I would make her proud. So after graduating in 2008, I started my internship after July 4th weekend, and I was living in Pomona at the time, so I'd have to wake up at 4 a.m. to leave at 5 a.m. to beat LA traffic, and I would get to the studio around 6:30 in the morning and play my DS until I went in at 8 a.m. Now the internship would get out at 5 p.m. on the dot, and it would literally take me 2.5 to 3 hours in LA traffic to get back to the room I was renting in Pomona, so I would get home around 7:30 to 8 p.m. every day after sitting through all that traffic, and it got to the point where I would just hang out and eat dinner at the local mall near the studio until 7 p.m. and it would only take me an hour to an hour and a half to get home. So on my first day of the internship, I met all the other interns, and most of them were pretty nice, but there were definitely some film school snobs who were talking like the dichotomy of the angle of the shot by cinematographer Gordon Willis, who shot Francis Ford Coppola's films like The Godfather, and I remember telling one of the other interns that my favorite director was Kevin Smith of Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob fame, and he looked horrified and told me, "The Clerks guy? But that movie was in black and white?" And he seemed super horrified that I didn't mention Scorsese, Spielberg, Lucas, or any of the high caliber directors like that. And I also remember this one intern was like, yeah man, I'm writing a screenplay right now because I want to get in as a writer. And I was like, oh, I'd love to check out your screenplay and give you some feedback. And then he was all like, don't take this the wrong way, man, but I don't want people stealing my idea. Okay. Here's something that probably all of you already know. Hollywood doesn't give a crap about your quote-unquote original idea. No. Don't try to convince me in the comments that your idea is the most original idea in the world and is going to be even bigger than Star Wars. Because Hollywood is more focused on making movies with established IP like Marvel, DC, and Star Wars, and so on, and they don't care about original ideas, especially in 2008 when the entire film industry was one of the industries that really suffered during the previous recession, since people didn't want to go to the movies as much to save money. Now, once in a while, you'll see an original idea like Jordan Peele's Get Out and Nope, but for every one of those movies, there's 1,000 other rejected ideas. And most of you should already know where unsolicited screenplays that get sent into Hollywood studios by delusional and overzealous filmmakers like myself end up in one place: the trash. And it's also kind of funny that I looked up this dude over the years, and I have an IMDB page and he still doesn't. So I still hope he's trying to make his quote-unquote original idea because he didn't want me stealing it. And the higher-ups I worked under were kinda nice, but not really. They kinda gave off this vibe of cynicism, and rightfully so, because the majority of people who try to work in Hollywood never end up making it. And I'm sure they've heard this one before: I want to be the next Spielberg and George Lucas. And they would be like, oh, you're one of those guys. Well, welcome to Hollywood, where your dreams come to die. So my job at the internship was doing Excel spreadsheets to keep track of inventory and props for various film, TV, and commercial shoots, and I wasn't given any titles or details on what I was working on, only because I was a lowly intern, and you could not finish any of these sheets in one day, and I needed every single waking moment to get all these items cataloged on an Excel spreadsheet, then mail it over to the higher-ups in production. Yeah, because this internship only lasted about 8 weeks, I had to get this stuff done fast. But once in a while they would vary things up, so I would be handed a sealed document and deliver it to the security on the film sets, and this term is called being a runner, and I remember being told if I was caught opening and peeking in these documents that I would get fired and sued to oblivion, and they weren't joking. So if you're wondering how Batman v Superman spoilers and other spoilers for movies get leaked in general, you can always count on some rogue intern doing this, but I did not do that because I certainly did not want to get fired and sued for millions, and possibly ruining my reputation in the film industry for life. And I also remember one of the other interns got fired because he complained to his higher-up that he deserved to work on the film sets, and this guy was definitely a film school snob with a massive sense of entitlement. So my advice, if you ever want to do an internship at a big studio, you better do everything they tell you and do not complain and act entitled because you're a nobody in the Hollywood system. And I also saw a lot of executives get into verbal arguments outside, and a lot of them yelling at the top of their lungs on their early iPhone 1s or their BlackBerry phones. Hey, remember those? So a lot of the massive douchebaggery stories you hear from Hollywood executives is 1,000% true, and it's a lot like high school where a lot of the executives talk crap about other actors and other executives from other studios, which is why I'm being careful not to mention specific names and companies in this video, because you know, I ain't like that, man. Even though I was super low on the totem pole as an intern, it just felt so cool being there at the studio despite the long drive and the cynical people I was working with, because I would constantly fantasize about walking into the executive offices so I could make a deal to shoot my movies and then going on set to film my epic Ninja Warrior in space movie. Well, since I was playing Ninja Gaiden 2 on the Xbox 360 at the time, you know what, I didn't want to be the next Steven Spielberg, but I wanted to be the first Ryan Molina, Hollywood director making Ninja in space movies. Well, maybe I'll just turn those into games instead. And I do have to admit, cataloging things wasn't exactly something I could brag about to my friends since I was under NDAs at the time. So all I could say was, yeah, I'm interning at a studio and I can't really talk about it. And I have watched a ton of movies that this studio produced over the years, and I'm 1,000,000% sure that a box I cataloged ended up in one of these movies. But I couldn't really prove it, and I couldn't be like, yeah, I totally cataloged that box that gets blown up in that movie. And since I was a lowly intern, I wasn't credited on anything. So after the internship was over at the end of August 2008, I was given a list of PA, production assistant jobs that I could apply for on paper, and it was kind of like a secret Craigslist, and I applied for all of them, but I didn't get any callbacks. I know we were in the start of the previous recession, but I didn't know things were this bad, and I only had 4 months of savings left, so I had to find something fast. But luckily in October, I was able to work with a really cool indie director as an editor on his film who was way more impressed with my anime music videos than my actual internship, and I learned way more from him than I ever did in my 2 months cataloging stuff in my internship. And he used to work in the industry on some lesser known films, but he wanted to do his own thing. And the most important thing he told me is that Hollywood is only a small dot on the map, and the whole world is much bigger for entertainment. And he was also saying, so there's this website called YouTube, and it's going to revolutionize the entire film industry. And this was in 2008, so YouTube was only a little over 3 years old at the time, but we all know that he was right, and he predicted the future. I wasn't really paid too much for my editing work on this indie film, but it did help me get by for the rest of 2008 and early 2009. So in 2009, I started applying for wedding and corporate video work while also trying to look for film work because I eventually wanted to become a director. And if you read A Movie Making Nerd, which is the book by James Rolfe, who's the angry video game nerd, he also used to work on wedding videos, but he was able to quit wedding videos in 2008 to pursue the angry video game nerd full-time. So after James Rolfe left wedding videos, I started doing them for a living. So I was a freelance video editor from 2008 to 2010, kind of like Frank West from Dead Rising as a freelance photographer, because I'm freelance, I don't wait for things to happen. So back in 2008, the main 3 video editors that people used were Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, and Avid Media Composer. If you really wanted to do film and television, they were more geared towards Final Cut and Avid, but mostly Avid. So I bought a $1,200 MacBook with my graduation money so I can learn Final Cut and Avid. I still mostly use Adobe Premiere Pro on my desktop, but I have had clients who had files in Final Cut and Avid, so I would convert those files to the latest versions of Final Cut and Avid on my old MacBook. So a lot of these wedding and corporate videos that I would edit would be shot on DV tapes and mid-2000s cameras at 240p and 480p, which at the time looked like absolute crap, but I did the best I could with what I had. And when it came to the wedding videos, people would ask me if I could put this copyrighted song playing with the footage and upload it to YouTube, but I had to tell people at the time that their videos could be taken down by YouTube for copyright violation, which is what we used to call Content ID back then, but a lot of them didn't care, so I also made DVD versions of the videos for a small additional charge just in case the videos on YouTube went down. So if you're wondering how much I would charge, wedding and corporate videos went for $2,000 to $5,000 per job back in 2008. So I'll give you a tip as a freelancer. People like that they're getting better quality the more they pay for it. For example, like, would you trust a guy offering to fix your car for $100 or a guy wanting to fix your car for $1,000? I'm pretty sure you're gonna go with the $1,000 guy because he seems more trustworthy and will use better parts. And I saw people on Craigslist advertising their editing services for $100 to $200, and in all honesty, not to toot my own horn, but their demo reels look like crap. And freelance video editing is a very, very big you get what you pay for thing. So I was making about $5,000 plus a month, and there were months I was making 5 figures, like $13,000 plus and more. So in 2009, I was like, recession, LOL. Yeah, because I was raking in the dough, and for some reason in 2009, a lot of people were getting married in my area. I guess it was like, let's get married before the decade ends type thing. So I was getting a ton of work. So in 2009, when a lot of my friends were losing their jobs, I got an apartment closer to my mom in Orange County so I could make sure that she was okay since my dad passed away, and I was spending really lavishly. While people were selling off their game collections after losing their jobs in the recession, my game collection was exploding. And this would be the most money I would ever make in my life to this day, and no other job has ever even come close. But being a freelancer isn't exactly the most stable profession, and it's more of being a full-time resume sender than actually what you're freelancing for. Of course, I didn't realize a year later, in 2010, that all of this was gonna come back and bite me in a really bad way. So I took my mom out to a fancy seafood dinner one time just to flex, and she brought up the question, and rightfully so, if being a freelancer was stable, especially in this economy, and if it all fails, I should consider getting a normal job. Yeah, but I was like, don't worry mom, I'm making so much money freelancing and not working for the man because I'm my own man. Oh boy. I really, really wish I listened to my mom back then. So back to freelance video editing. While I was making really good money doing wedding and corporate videos, my real desire was to do actual film and television work, and there were times as a freelancer I would have 2 to 3 weeks of no work, so I would spend that time trying to apply for film and TV gigs while making anime music videos on the side. But in order to pay my bills, I still had to resort to wedding and corporate videos. So I remember trying to apply for a certain news station that probably a lot of you already know, and during my interview I was told that my hours would be from 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. and while those hours sounded absolutely insane and I'd have to go to bed early and wake up super early, there wouldn't be any traffic on the freeway, so that would have been really convenient. But sadly I didn't get the job, which was a good thing because knowing the reputation that this news station would have later, you can say I dodged a bullet there. So I once did a wedding video for a guy who used to be a sound engineer for one of the big studios, but he got laid off, and he was working as a freelance sound designer ever since. And you know what he told me? There's this website called YouTube, man, and I've been making a living doing freelance sound gigs for people on YouTube rather than when I worked in the industry. And there we go again! You know, people that I've been working with were telling me YouTube's gonna be the next big thing, and here we are! And as for actual film work I've tried to apply for, I applied to be an editor on another indie film, which seemed like it had a pretty cool premise, so I emailed the director my resume and his team was definitely interested in hiring me, but I started going down this rabbit hole involving this director, and I highly recommend Googling any prospective employers you plan on working on, not just in film, but in any industry, and I found out this guy was involved with some underground illegal stuff. I kid you not. So it kind of made sense how he got funding for his films, but he's not a director that you've ever heard of. It seemed like he was more of a dude who had money to pursue his expensive hobby of filmmaking, but didn't want mainstream attention. Now, if you're a fan of Tommy Wiseau and The Room, it's speculated how he raised the budget for that movie, but I guarantee whatever methods Tommy Wiseau used to fund The Room were 100% more legal than what this guy was doing. And I also read testimonials from people who used to work with this guy, and yeah, they were very off-putting about him to say the least. So I didn't want the cops knocking on my door for being associated with this dude, so I emailed the producer of the film and told him that I found another job, which in all honesty I didn't. But don't worry, I ended up getting another wedding gig 2 weeks later. I did look up this guy pretty recently, and his film still has not been finished. So those stories about Hollywood being involved with illegal stuff like organized crime are definitely true to some extent. So another film gig I applied for was for this documentary being directed by this guy who did have some legit credits, and don't worry, he was not involved with, organized crime and stuff like that. He was a completely legitimate, law-abiding person, and he was an associate producer for a lot of reality TV shows at the time, and he told me that, he's been working in the industry for over 40 years, and he wanted to do his own thing, which is completely understandable. Yeah, but hey bro, did you hear about this new and exciting website called YouTube? It's totally gonna revolutionize the film industry, man, like everyone's been telling me. And he really seemed to be more interested by my anime music video awards rather than my internship and my wedding and corporate video work. Setting Goku versus Majin Vegeta to Linkin Park is way more interesting than seeing two newlyweds dancing to copyrighted music I couldn't put in my wedding videos. So this guy told me that he was going to get some legal clearances in the next 2 weeks, and then we would have a proper meeting to go over my contract and my pay, which would have been in the mid 5 figures and would have been my biggest payday to date. So I was really saying, recession, LaMayo! So in 2009, I was thinking I was going to get this big documentary gig. So for the past week or so, I kept calling his secretary, aka his wife, on whether he got the legal clearances or not, and she told me that he was working on it. So about 3 weeks passed and I'm kinda desperate for work even though I got 5 figures in my bank account, but that money wasn't going to increase itself unless I worked. So I give the director a call and still get the same answer another week later, which makes it around 4 weeks since our initial phone call, and then I get their answering machine and then eventually, this line has been disconnected. So this dude and his wife definitely ghosted me and took off. So I looked up this guy pretty recently and he hasn't had any film credits since 2009, so I assume he left the industry and would never give me the really fat paycheck that I would have gotten editing this documentary. Oh well. I needed that money so bad! Alright guys, now it's time to talk about the really funny opportunity that I had, because I can actually talk about it and it's way too comedic to not talk about. So, award-winning actor and producer Brian Thompson, who is in Terminator 1, The X-Files, and Star Trek, but most importantly, Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It is glorious! So he posted an editing job on Craigslist, and he only listed himself with his A+ material like Terminator, X-Files, and Star Trek, and was like, work with award-winning actor and producer Brian Thompson. So when I sent in my resume, I also wrote on my cover letter that I was a huge fan of his role as Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and how much it would be an honor to work with him, and I didn't get a reply. So out of all of his award-winning performances on the X-Files, Terminator 1, and Star Trek, I just had to mention the stain on his career, which was Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Hey Brian, if you're watching this right now, I would still love to work with you on a sequel to Mortal Kombat Annihilation called Mortal Kombat Annihilation 2. No, not Mortal Kombat 3, but Mortal Kombat Annihilation 2 as Shao Kahn's whipping boy that you yell, "You weak, pathetic fool," and "You suck," and then you kick me into a pit. And how would I explain working with award-winning actor and producer Brian Thompson from Terminator 1, Star Trek, and the X-Files? It is glorious! So aside from my little comedic encounter with Brian Thompson, I was living the high life for most of 2009 up until November when work dried up for the holiday season, and now 2010. So when 2010 started, we were in the peak of the recession, and imagine trying to send out your resume everywhere and getting no replies back. I was sending like 100 resumes a day to any film or video job I can get, and nothing. So imagine lying in bed in 2010, depressed, worried, and not knowing if you were going to be able to pay the bills that month, when a year before in 2009, I was living the high life, making 5 figures a month before the recession got really bad. And man, I really should have listened to my mom a year before. So I was able to get one wedding gig at the end of January of 2010, but my client had to lowball my pay due to the economy, so I had to accept a measly $500 because I was really desperate for work. And that was the last real professional editing gig I had until I worked for this really awful real estate company in 2013, making videos for their marketing department, which I won't really get into here. So the 5 figures in my savings were dwindling fast, and I had to resort to repairing Xbox 360s to make a living, which I may talk about in another vlog, but sadly that wasn't able to sustain my bills for very long, and so by August of 2010 I had less than $200 in my bank account, even after selling the vast majority of my game collection to pay the bills over that summer. So I got my eviction notice for my fancy apartment, and that was more or less one of the absolute lowest points of my life. So I ended up calling my mom saying I was broke and getting evicted, so she helped me pay the eviction legal fees. So I moved back home for 3 years until 2013 until I moved out again. I got myself a normal office job and have been working normal office jobs ever since. And a year later in 2011, Battle Geek Plus started, and that's how I ended up here today. So my time in the film industry and working as a freelance editor making 5 figures a month was extremely short-lived, mostly due to being in the previous recession at the time, but I definitely don't regret my time doing it because it made me realize a few important things. So Hollywood is a very small dot on the map for entertainment, and the world is much bigger, and YouTube definitely revolutionized the film industry and content creation in general, making us bypass all the gatekeepers. And as great as it was making 5 figures a month doing wedding and corporate videos, I wanted to do my own thing, which YouTube definitely helped out with. So in the end, everybody was right. The future was not in Hollywood, but on YouTube. So would I ever go back into the industry? Definitely not as an editor, director, or producer, but mostly as an actor. Just in case a director sees my YouTube videos and thinks I'm a good fit for the role, I'll gladly audition and do whatever the director tells me to do. So here's my advice for anyone wanting to get into the film industry. So your shortcomings will most likely not be your fault, whether you want to get in as an actor, producer, writer, editor, director, etc. Even if you are perfect for the job, there's always going to be someone who just has a better resume than you, a slightly bigger nose than you, maybe their feet is a little bigger or smaller, or anything else that'll catch a producer's eye just more than you. And the majority of people who try to get into Hollywood fail, like myself, but you'll never know unless you try, right? And in addition to that, always have a plan B, because I knew coming into the film industry that if I couldn't make it, I would just try to get an office job and work on my stuff on my spare time. And I know a lot of people are like, I gotta do or die, man. This is my last chance to be in the industry. I gotta make my movie that's even bigger than Star Wars. But the odds are really stacked against you, so don't make any hasty decisions without a plan B. Yeah, because for every Jennifer Lopez and Brad Pitt, there are thousands upon thousands of other hopefuls that never make it. And if you're gonna get into the editing side of things, learn Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut, and Avid, with more of an emphasis on Avid. And I'm not really sure how much this changed over the past 15 years, but I think this advice still holds true. I mean, Avid is definitely more difficult to learn, but it does make you faster with the keyboard, which really helped me edit faster as well, which I still apply to this day. And last but not least, my real honest-to-God advice, in my opinion, just make your own stuff. Because Hollywood is so full of gatekeepers that for every film that actually gets into theaters or streaming, there are thousands that never make it or even get past the pitch phase, and they definitely say Hollywood is where dreams go to die. And after experiencing the adpocalypse on YouTube, I can definitely understand, because you just can't let anyone just go out and make something. So just imagine if Hollywood was kind of like YouTube, but for theaters, and anybody can upload anything to a theater. You're gonna get a lot of controversial stuff. I mean, even though there's a lot of crap that goes through Hollywood, I can understand why there's gatekeepers now. But however, I'm not going to discourage anyone from trying to get into the industry, but in my honest to God opinion, just make your own stuff and upload it to YouTube. You'll be a million times happier, trust me. If you want to make your own Star Wars movie, then by all means, just put on some costumes, get some toy lightsabers, and shoot it with your friends like a lot of other filmmakers have done. Sure, you might not be able to monetize it the way you think and get it into theaters since you don't own the copyright for Star Wars, but there's this magical place that everyone's been telling me over the years called YouTube, where you can upload anything without any of the gatekeepers in place. So back in 2008, I proposed a challenge to myself that in 5 years, in 2013, that I would have a movie out in a theater. Now, under normal circumstances, I didn't succeed at this, but I'm gonna challenge myself on some technicalities. So let's see if I really achieved this challenge. So everyone has their own definition of what a movie is and how long it should be. Some people say a movie needs to be 2 hours, 90 minutes, an hour, but James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, once said on his website that all of his work, even his short films, are considered movies, since you don't always need 90 minutes to tell a story, hence the word short films. So do I have any short films? Well, yeah, I got a ton of them on my YouTube channel, but we're gonna go back to the year 2002 with my anime music videos. Oh, so you say anime music videos don't count? Well, James Rolfe counted his old Back to the Future mashup videos as films, and James Rolfe is definitely a more successful filmmaker than me, so I'll take his word for it. So my anime music videos are short films in themselves. So I did this anime music video called Dragon Bebop Z, which is a crossover between Dragon Ball Z and Cowboy Bebop, back in 2002, which did tell a narrative story told with music and editing as the Bebop crew tries to capture the Z fighters, and you can watch this video on 3gkai.com, and I'll put a link in the description below. So I had this anime music video premiere at anime music video contests all over the country, where it was played in big ballrooms with crowds of 500 to 2,000 people. In the summer of 2002, Dragon Bebop Z premiered at the Long Beach Terrace Theater. Yes, a theater where actual movies are played, during Anime Expo 2002, where I saw it with a crowd of a couple thousand people. And during Anime Expo 2008, I had my Go the Distance anime music video, which was a crossover between Rocky and Hajime no Ippo, play in the former Nokia Theater, now known as the Microsoft Theater, where David Cook won American Idol earlier that year. So yes, I had a video play in the same venue where American Idol and the Game Awards are held. So technically, I had 2 theatrical premieres even before I worked in the film industry, and I really wish I mentioned that more, because at the time I didn't think they really counted, so thanks, James Rolfe. Okay, smart guy, but have you actually made a 90-minute or narrative movie? Well, not only did I make a narrative 3.5-hour movie with my Dragon Quest version 5 review, I even got professional anime voice actors to perform in it, along with the late Gilbert Gottfried. Well, that doesn't really count because you only paid for a cameo, which anyone can do. Well, that's technically true, but it was the real Gilbert Gottfried, and I had to direct him to say what I needed him to say, so I technically directed Gilbert Gottfried and put him in my movie. Also, I can technically rent out a theater for a night and play the Dragon Quest X version 5 review to count as a theatrical release, but I don't think I want to see myself on the big screen for 3.5 hours. So there you have it. Not only did I have 2 theatrical premieres, I also made a movie with Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah, but insert reasons why this doesn't count, blah blah blah. Okay, no. Just let me have this one, okay? In my own mind, please. Well, I achieved my dream of having my work shown in a theater, and that's that. So even though I moved on to my first love, game development, I still have fond memories of when I tried to make it big in Hollywood, and while I eventually failed, I learned it's a million times better to make your own thing on YouTube, and YouTube really did revolutionize the way films and content creation are made, as I was told back in 2008. So with that all said, I wish you all the best of luck in your creative endeavors, and this ends this episode of the Battle Blog. I'm Ryan, and see you next time, gamers. Oh yeah, Brian, call me because it is glorious! Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to check out these other videos, and also make sure to follow me on social media and check out the official Battle Geek Plus website. Take care.